Hello, everyone. My name is Robert Winfree, and what you're about to listen to is an old episode of a podcast I used to host called Everyone Loves a Bad Guy. This particular episode deals with elements of the Fantastic Four, which is why we're re-airing it now, because Disney Marvel now, is taking another crack at this after the debacle that was the Four Stick, and that actually gets brought up a little bit on this podcast. But being in Everyone Loves a Bad Guy, this is primarily a look at the antagonistic forces that face down Marvel's first family. So Doctor Doom gets a fair bit of discussion. Galactus, Living Tribunal might get a shout out at one point or another. I forget exactly. But the Four have faced a fair number of obstacles. Again, Doctor Doom is their primary antagonist. But myself and Mark Radulich get together. Mark comes in a little bit later into the episode. And we had a good time discussing the villains of the Fantastic Four. Let us all hope, and by the time you're listening to this movie's probably already out, so there will be a Damn You Hollywood for the new Fantastic Four movie as well. But let's hope it's good, and this is a property that shouldn't be this hard to get right on film. Just put it like that. That's all I'm going to say about it. Alright, this episode originally aired August 14th, 2015, so forgive the very, very out-of-date plugs. Right. On that note, thank you very much for engaging with the product in any way you can, any way you feel is appropriate. I will throw it to my past self. Until then, thank you all very much for listening as always, and enjoy the show.
When the devil is too busy and death a bit too much, they call on me by name, you see, for my special touch. To the gentlemen I'm misfortune, to the ladies I'm surprise. But call me by any name, anyway it's all the same. I'm the fly in your suit, I'm the pebble in your shoe, I'm the bee beneath your bed, I'm the bump on every head, I'm the heel on which you slip, I'm the pin in every head, I'm the thorn in your side, makes you wiggle and ride. And it's so easy when you're evil. This is the life you see, the devil tips his hat to me. I do it all because I'm evil, and I do it all for free. Your tears are all the pay I'll ever need.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. Though if you're a child listening to this, I weep for your future. So just be aware there's someone out there for you who is sad about what you will grow into if this is the path you have chosen or your parents have set you on. This is Everyone Loves a Bad Guy. I'm your host, Robert Winfree, and thank you all for being here. Took a couple of weeks off, one of which was intentional. 2 weeks ago, I deliberately said, no show. Roddy Piper had just passed. I couldn't do it. I couldn't get myself together enough to really kind of do an Everyone Loves a Bad Guy. Instead, we had a very special kind of roundtable memory share about Roddy with myself, Mark Radulich, Larry Zonka, Pat Mullen, which I would encourage you all to find in the archives. I also linked up for everyone my episode of Everyone Loves a Bad Guy that I did with Pat Mullen about a year ago, give or take, talking about Roddy Piper specifically. I'm very glad that one got done while Piper was still alive. Because I don't want to make it sound, ghoulish or morbid or, maybe to kind of dump on people who do those after someone passes. I'm happy when I'm able to pay tribute to someone while they're still alive, as far as that goes. I mean, it's been a rough year for that. I mean, we lost Christopher Lee and Roddy Piper this year. So two guys who got their own, shows here, and I'm just glad they were done while those people were alive. And that, just me personally, I'm very happy about that. All right, tonight, last week, meant to explain. Last week, I had a rough Friday for various reasons, none of which you all care about. I went down to, and long story short, I slept through my start time. I didn't get a show scheduled. It just, again, rough day. Just it got away from me. Time got away from me, as it does, which it shouldn't, because it's linear and pretty consistent as long as you actually, are on the planet Earth. Yay for, gravity bending time, but that's again, this is not a physics podcast, so we're going to leave that off right there. But I'm back. I'm here this week. I'm happy. And, well, there's going to be a bit of a repeat this week. There's going to be some ground retread. You see, for those of you not aware of this fact, the Fantastic Four movie came out last week, and it was awful. I mean, I think we all knew it was going to be bad. I think we all knew it was going to be really bad, and then it came out, and somehow it managed to be worse than I was expecting, and I think most people were expecting. And it just... So in honor of that, I decided that this week we're going to take a look at some of the rogues gallery, some of the villains that inhabit the Fantastic Four. And also I wanted to kind of close out this evening with a discussion about why these movies can't seem to be made properly. Because honestly, I swear I don't get it. It shouldn't be that hard. But there have been 4 movies now. Roger Corman had an unreleased movie. The 2 Fox movies that were primarily Jessica Alba vehicles, and that's in no small part the reason they failed. And now this one, and none of them are any good. I mean, there are good points to, I suppose there's some good points to, the Fox's first attempt, but they're not very good movies. And then this one is just utter dreck. So that's kind of where we're landing. We're going to run through some of their famous villains. And then I want to talk about, again, Fox as a studio kind of failing miserably, and just why it's so difficult to get these things up and running. And Mark Radulich is going to be here. He told me he might be a little bit late. Computer issues, because, boy, everyone loves computers and the new Windows update, apparently. So anyway, he's in the middle of that, so he'll be on when he gets a second, as soon as he's free and clear of that. In the interim, here's Solo, and I'm going to jump right into the deep end with Dr. Doom, because Doom is the quintessential villain for the Fantastic Four. He's just a monster. And I need to plug another podcast I did, also with Pat Mullen. Last year-ish, I did a pretty long trek through various comic book properties, and Dr. Doom got his own show. In fact, he was one of the ones that kind of started that whole thing. And this is one of those things where if you're only familiar with this character as a property from the movies, or even in many ways from the television shows, you're not going to be all that impressed. The character has never been done justice on the big screen, or the small screen for that matter. And it's a crying shame. I mean, this is one of those things that shouldn't be that hard about this entire thing. And again, I don't want to get too far into the failures of the movies yet. I do want to get there. But Doom, as again, just in the source material in the comic books, is a very interesting character in a lot of ways. He's not just a straight mustache twirly villain. He can do that, but he's so much more than that. A lot of what he does, especially early on in his career, is dedicated to trying to get strong enough to save the spirit of his mother from the depths of hell. And I don't know about you people, but if I was aware of that fact, that's certainly something I might, bend my efforts to. He's an incredibly great villain. First of all, if you listen to him at least, he's the smartest man on the planet. Objectively speaking, the only guy smarter than him is Reed Richards. And even then, Doom has surpassed him at times. Doom is the only one who was able to effectively reverse the transformative process of the Thing, which Richards has been trying to do since it happened, and he can't do it. And Doom could. He's got armor that, according to Iron Man, makes his armor look like a toaster with armholes. He's got a genius of nearly the highest order. He learned magic, mastered it in his spare time. Not his main focus. In his spare time, he mastered magic and took the Sorcerer Supreme, Doctor Strange, to his limits. Couldn't quite overcome him, but the fact that he took, greatest, most powerful magic user on Earth, and after studying magic in his spare time, Doom is nearly able to overpower him with magic. He's part of some of the things that make him so great as a villain is how difficult it is to get rid of him, because first of all, there's very few comic book characters who are prepared and willing to, kill the man. And it's impossible to lock him up. He is actually the ruler of his own country. The country of Latveria is ruled by Dr. Doom. As far as that pertains to his actions in the United States, that gives him, the much ballyhooed and discussed diplomatic immunity. I mean, this is a guy who has tried to take over the world, nearly succeeded, has captured the power cosmic, captured the powers of the Beyonder. I seem to recall there's a story in which he assembles the Infinity Gauntlet. He's also, at one point summarily bitch slapped by Thanos. And here's the thing, he gets, again, hit by the Beyonder, basically at full force, crashes into a very inhospitable planet, minus his armor, still survives, still conquers the planet, and still returns to Earth. He's just, again, nearly unstoppable. And part of this goes to his motivation, too. This is not a flat character. Again, he's not just trying to, wipe out the world to wipe out the world. There's always a motivation behind what he does. Maybe it's his ego. You can try to prove his superiority to Reed Richards. Maybe it's something more, again, he tries to save his mother's soul from hell. He actually sacrifices his wife at one point to try and do that. And I seem to recall he has to use her skin as a cloak so he can enter the portal that leads to hell. So not a nice guy at all. This is just, he's a great villain and in just all the possible ways you could want. And for some reason, they can't seem to get him right. And here's Mark. Hi, Mark.
Hi, Rob.
So you're going to see Clutch.
Yes. Hey, how do I sound, by the way?
You sound good.
Okay. I have, if you don't follow me on Facebook, and really, why don't you follow me on Facebook? I'm awesome. I finally gathered up my armies. We formed a cohesive unit, and we drove back the Horde. We drove them out of the living room, you see. No more toy cars, no more toy dolls, no more toy dolls driving toy cars. No more toy kitchen things. No more this, that, and the other. Everything has been struck from the living room. I drove them all back. And so in doing so, I took the space that we had dedicated to my children's play area, which eventually became the entire goddamn house, and I put my computer there. So wanted to make sure I sounded okay, since I'm using all new equipment.
You're good. And congratulations on reclaiming some small part of your property. You have emerged from, again, the joke about men only having the bathroom nowadays.
I'll tell you what, and I know that we're all here to talk about bad guys, because this is Everyone Loves a Bad Guy, and I certainly wouldn't want to take over your podcast by talking about something that isn't related to bad guys. But let me just say this, and I'm not going to talk about my job either. Let me just say this. It's nice to be able to walk into my living room and dining room area and not see toys everywhere. It's nice to feel like I live in a house again, and not essentially a fraternity run by drunken midgets. You hear that, Lily? You're a drunken midget.
Well, given child development and brain chemistry and whatnot, that's not an inaccurate assessment.
Lily, how do you feel about being a drunken midget? She says not good.
Well, good, because you don't want to be that. All right, I had just kind of wrapped up talking a little bit about Dr. Doom as the primary antagonist for the Fantastic Four. So you had, when I started my look at comic book properties last year at some point, I forget exactly when, it was a long look, and it burned me out in a lot of ways. But when I started that, Pat had his own show. He and I talked about Dr. Doom at length. You and I talked about the Joker at length, and I'm curious, since now I can finally kind of get you here to talk about it, what are your thoughts on Dr. Doom as a character specifically within the realm of the comics, within the source material?
As I said on our review of the Fantastic Four, brought to you by the guy who did Chronicle, he stole the power of the gods. Dr. Doom has really gone there and back again. He has, in many ways, succeeded in what he was trying to do, but ultimately, in finding failure, he sort of just went off and did his own thing and became kind of this villain who said, look, as long as you people aren't bothering me, I probably won't bother you either. one of my favorite things that he's done in recent years was as ruler of Latvia. Is it
Latveria?
Latveria.
Yeah, Latvia is a real place.
Latveria, he's just minding his own business, tending about his castle, and Banner comes to him and says, "Look, you're the guy. I need you. I need you to perform surgery and separate me from the Hulk." And I forget what he asks for in return to do it, but he succeeds. And there's this whole series where Banner, having been divorced physically from the Hulk, I've talked about this before, first goes crazy and tries to recreate the accident that gave him his powers in the first place. But there's this whole thing of the Hulk divorced from Banner kind of going off, and what does a Hulk free from Banner do with himself? And he's eating shark by fireside on an ice flume, and he's eating caribou by fireside next to a mountain. He's just off and running. But it was Dr. Doom who made that possible. Dr. Doom is one of the seminal geniuses of the Marvel Universe, and he's just an interesting character. I'm fascinated by him because he is one of the smartest people in the Marvel Universe, and yet he has so many problems with Reed Richards. He's so smart, but it's just that he's not as smart as Reed, or whatever the issue is. He's just that's always his bee in his bonnet, his thing that trips him up. So he's a fascinating character. As I said before, if Fox calls me and says, "Hey, we need you to reboot the Fantastic Four for a third time," I don't even go near Dr. Doom at this point. At this point, he's such a damaged character. I already told you what I would do.
Yeah, and I'll have you repeat that again in a little bit. But and I'm just curious, because I didn't get your take on this really. When we reviewed Fantastic Four on Wednesday, if any of you haven't heard that, you can find that in the archives on Blog Talk Radio, iTunes, Stitcher, however you follow us. And I would encourage you to do so, because Mark and I are more entertaining than that movie. I mean, it was true of Pixels. It's truer of this one. I kind of stole the show I stole that scene to rant about their version of Doctor Doom. So I'm curious, before we move on to the next villain I have up here that I lined up that I want to talk about, why is it so hard for Fox Studios, any director, any writer, to get this character right? There's 60 some odd years of material to draw from, and 3 times out, they've failed miserably.
First of all, I don't think Fox Studios understands the property that they have. I mean, I don't know if you want to get into this now or if you want to save it for the later discussion, but
it can work. We can kind of freeform this.
Okay. I don't think Fox understands the Fantastic Four. When they initially did the Tim Story movie, the idea was, hey, we've got all these X-Men movies that are kind of meant for an older audience. We need a movie that with superheroes that's sort of set for a younger audience, which is why the first Tim Story Fantastic Four movie was so silly. It was when you say meant for kids, as we say, you can make a kids movie like Inside Out that appeals to adults and to kids on different levels, or you can just assume every kid's a retard and make a movie at that level. And they went with the latter. So that was the idea. That was the idea behind that version of the Fantastic Four. It was we need to dumb this up for the children. We can't have another X-Men franchise. We've already got that. We need the kid dollars. We need that John Cena money. So that kind of explains that. But I think beyond that, I don't think they ever really understood what Doctor Doom was all about. He's not just villain McBad guy. He's not mustache twirly. He's a megalomaniac, and
with a country at his disposal, a genius intellect, and armor and magic that make the combination of Tony Stark and Stephen. I mean, look, if you merged Tony Stark with Stephen Strange, made it evil, you'd about have Doctor Doom from a power standpoint.
Right. And again, I think Fox got the rights to the Fantastic Four because they were available and they were famous and they figured they'd make a dollar off of it. But I don't think they ever truly understood what they had or what they were going to do with it. It was just Marvel was having a fire sale. They bought what was available, what they thought they could make money with, without putting any real thought behind it.
That sounds about right.
And so they put Doctor Doom in there, and then they come up with this story where he's up there in the space station with them, and they were also trying to make it more modern and appealing to people, in 2005. So they made him an evil business guy. I mean, I give him points for trying, but that's not Doctor Doom.
Well, my issue with it was, and look, you can again, we've talked about this at length in the past on various other podcasts, and we're going to revisit elements of it here. You can monkey with the source material. Okay, the source material is not set in stone. You can monkey with it a little bit. Turning him into an evil businessman, on the surface, not a bad idea. I mean, this is royalty from a foreign country. If he's rich, that can, that can play. They just didn't do anything with it. It's just, evil villain. Again, evil businessman. And look, there's this guy from that show that people watch. He's evil, right? Right?
Sean and I talked about this. One of the biggest problems with the first Fantastic Four movie, not the Roger Corman version, is that there's not an established motivation for any of what he does. It's just, it's just basically he's mad at Reed for the experiment having gone wrong, which was totally out of Reed's. If you remember the plot of that movie, they went up there to do an experiment, and the wave of energy that overcomes the space station ends up traveling at a faster rate than Reed had initially calculated. So it catches Ben Grimm outside the station. There's an argument over raising or lowering the shields. They all at various levels end up getting exposed, including Doctor Doom, and it gives him his powers. And so he spends the rest of the time seeking revenge on his board of directors because they have lost faith in him after this experiment has gone wrong. And then he seeks out revenge against Reed, and that's all there is to the movie. So the problem there is now you've gone in and you don't have a very interesting plot, and you don't have a very interesting character. They might as well have set the Fantastic Four against any generic horror monster for what it was worth. You know what I mean? It's just if all you're motivated by is revenge, okay, but we've seen that before. That's not anything special. It was and then of course they spent a lot of that movie with the Fantastic Four not doing anything, but that's a whole other podcast.
All of those have been I got thinking about this. It seems like all of those movies, again, the two in 05 and 07, and then this one, they spend a lot of time doing nothing.
Yeah, I guess it's like the Avengers. Captain America doesn't really have powers. Black Widow doesn't really have powers. Hawkeye doesn't really have powers. So the only time they have to really use a lot of, in theory, you don't have to do a lot of CGI with Thor either, because all he has to do is look handsome and swing a hammer. You have to use him.
He needs to do more than that, but
when you break it down, no, he doesn't.
If you're dealing with a visual standpoint, then yes, that's all you really require.
Yeah, no, I'm not talking about anything else. My point is the Fantastic Four all have very visual powers. The Thing is a rock monster. The Invisible Woman can turn herself invisible and project things. You've got, the Human Torch who's on fire, and then you have Mr. Fantastic, who stretches. And no one's really gotten the stretching thing where it looks good on screen. The Human Torch has looked okay, and almost any time they've had him on screen. The Thing varies from terrible to mediocre. And then there's nothing to get wrong with the Invisible Girl, really. She turns invisible. She's the least costly of the bunch. But I think if you're going to do a Fantastic Four movie and do it right, especially for somebody like you who's a CGI snob, you really have to invest a lot of money in this. And I don't think anyone has been willing to do that yet. I don't think anyone has been willing to shovel, $300 million into the Fantastic Four to make sure Reed Richards doesn't look retarded. So instead, you get a couple of token scenes of them using their powers, and then a lot of just exposition and dialogue and relationships, and you go to a superhero movie to watch people do superhero stuff. You don't, yes, you want all those other things to be there as well. But if you don't see the Thing smash things, if you don't see Mr. Fantastic stretch, if you don't see the Human Torch throw fireballs, what are we watching here? You might as well watch Hawkeye and Black Widow the movie.
And it's probably less interesting than a Hawkeye and Black Widow movie would be. Let's be fair about that. All right. Last quick thought, because I didn't get your thoughts on this when we reviewed the movie. Well, we vaguely did, but poor Toby Kebbell having to try and portray the worst written version of Doctor Doom ever in this most recent version of the film. I mean, again, I ranted on it. I think it's nothing. It's sad. It's pathetic as a character. Ignoring the source material, it's a sad, pathetic character that has no menace, no power, and his rise to evil prominence is shoehorned in at the last possible minute for no discernible reason. But I'm curious, for you, I mean, again, your villain is one of your cornerstones of the movie, always has been. And so what did you think? I don't want to prejudice you with my opinions, but what did you think of the version of Doom that we got in this most recent Fantastic Four movie?
Well, as I did say during the review, I thought the character was an utter waste. I thought that there was a lot written about him in the media, none of which is in the film. If you don't tell me anything about this character and you ask me to describe Doctor Doom in this movie, he is a sulking, emo, prodigy brat who's stuck on Sue Storm. That's it. That's all there was to him. I mean, he was a character that was more fit for like an American Pie movie than he is for a Fantastic Four movie.
Don't say that. Now someone's going to think it's a good crossover idea.
He just he's kind of a jerk. But you're right, he's not really menacing. I think that's another reason why they keep getting Doctor Doom wrong, is they keep wanting to associate Doctor Doom with the Fantastic Four, and like they were all friends and teammates, and then there's a split. Like, why can't Doctor Doom just be an evil that's doing something that the Fantastic Four have to respond to? This is the second time in a row they've used the character and made him interrelated.
Yeah, I mean, I believe, again, technically speaking, he and Reed were college roommates, but they weren't. You don't have to be, best of friends, and we don't need 60 minutes of them interacting.
Well, that's the thing. If you go back and you read Reed Richards' history, him and Doom were college roommates, and they were also like competitors. They were trying to outdo one another. And by the time Reed gets his mission to space, he's used up his fortune. I mean, there was a lot of good stuff in the 2005 version, and they used a lot of that source material. It just kind of goes off the rails after that, because and that has more to do with, again, you don't ever see the Fantastic Four doing anything. The guy that played Doctor Doom in the 2005 movie, he was fine. He was certainly a lot better than this version.
Yeah, very true. Yet still somehow manages to pale when compared to the only halfway decent version of Doctor Doom we've ever gotten in the movies, which is from the only decent Fantastic Four movie we've ever gotten, which was The Incredibles.
Well, like I said, I think if you're going, you have to know what you have. And Doctor Doom is more than just a guy seeking revenge. That's a character you use, Bullseye or Rhino, the Wrecking Crew. Marvel has a lot of villains, a lot of like second, third, and fourth tier villains that you can do a basic revenge plot with. Doctor Doom is so much bigger than all of that. And
this is a guy who warrants the attention of the Avengers as a group.
Right.
When he actually kicks off an evil plot, you need the Avengers and the Fantastic Four to stop him.
I mean, this is a guy who lays in wait for Thanos to fall so that he can pick up, the crumbs of his defeat and turn it into his own victory. This is a guy who, again, stole, I keep saying the power of the gods, he stole the Beyonder's power. He became a Beyonder himself. In this most recent iteration of the Secret Wars, when the Beyonders decide to destroy the multiverse, it's Doom who stands up to them. And Doom, who basically, takes the power of the Beyonders and creates this amalgamation called Battleworld. I mean, that's not a guy who's just out for revenge. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I completely hear you. All right, my next up is another villain who pseudo villain. I'm going to go with pseudo villain here because he showed up in one of the movies, Rise of the Silver Surfer. I want to talk a little bit about Galactus because Galactus is a character that the Fantastic Four seem to constantly kind of run up against. I don't know why they keep traveling to planets that he's about to consume. You'd think they'd have learned to stay out of his way by now. But for some reason, during their space adventures, they keep running across Galactus as he floats around in his ship with his really awkward hat. And Galactus is not a character in the traditional sense. He's a force of nature. He exists to consume. And, I mean, again, you can't say he's a villain any more than, an earthquake or a hurricane's a villain. It just is. And they constantly wind up trying to thwart him as he has to, consume planets, and he consumes habited planets. Like, oh, look, people. I don't think it matters, but he shows up, he consumes a planet, he moves on, and that's just what he does. He's eternally hungry. And I'm curious now. For as much crap as Giant Space Cloud gets from Rise of the Silver Surfer, and rightfully so in many ways. I mean, you got to give them some credit because they could not have done traditional Galactus. I mean, again, for as awesome as he is in the comics when he shows up, and for as imposing and powerful and whatnot, you can't do that on the big screen. It would just be too stupid.
Okay, let me tell you how you do Galactus on the big screen without making him a giant space cloud.
All right.
There's nothing wrong with making him a guy. Make him a dude. You can make him a larger than average dude. You can make him twice the size of a human being. You can't make him like the size of the planet. I would say Willie. Okay, make him Willie size. You know who Willie is?
There's quite a few different characters with that name.
Lily, who's Willie? No, who's Willie? B5O. Willie the Giant. Willie the Giant. That's right. He don't know no Fifi. That's right. Right, Lily?
I have no reference for what you're saying, but okay.
Mickey and the Beanstalk. Okay. Willie is the giant from Mickey and the Beanstalk. So, and he's he's a giant, but he's not ridiculously sized. He's just, I would say Mickey Mouse is a little dude. So let's say he's maybe 10 times the size of Goofy. All right, in scale, but 10
to 12 feet.
He also plays like the ghost of, I think, Christmas Present, and he stands just over the average building.
Okay, so 20 feet
in Dickens era England.
All right, 20 feet for the sake of argument.
Okay, yeah, make him about 20 feet tall. Okay, so that when he stands on the earth, he's imposing. And then like they're fighting a giant, but you don't have to make him planet-sized. The way that he consumes the planets is make the spaceship the thing. The spaceship. See, I like the concept that they had in Rise of the Silver Surfer, where there were essentially these great big sinkholes that were appearing, because I think that's how you make Galactus consume the planets. Is he drives up the spaceship. The spaceship then causes all of these disruptions to the planet, which essentially is breaking it down, and then sucking it up into the ship, and then delivering it to Galactus. And you don't pour it into his bowl, and he eats it like cereal or some shit like that. But
it can be intravenously.
Yeah, it's make it a something that he hooks up to his chest. He's got the steering wheel in his hands, he's got the thing in his chest, a big tube, and it's just and it's feeding him that way. That's how you do Galactus, and don't give him a stupid hat.
That hat, man. Again, as much as I'm a fan of Galactus as, force of nature, consumes planets, the hat is just, it's fine in the comics because it's what you expect, Right. The comic world is its own thing.
Yeah, it's very Golden Age comics, and it's fine there. But just have a guy in a purple and blue outfit, driving the spaceship and making 20 feet tall, and he eats the planet that way. That's how you do Galactus in the movies. The giant space cloud was ash retarded, and I
just wish they would have gone further with the giant space cloud.
Like what?
Well, I'm a big Lovecraft fan, so the notion of Galactus, instead of being, a guy in a ship, being a giant, kind of amorphous, undescribable, unknowable intergalactic horror that consumes planets for nutrition appeals to me. They just made it look really, really stupid.
Now, I want to see him drive the ship up there when he's causing these, earth-shattering disruptions, trying to break this planet down, and the ship is invulnerable to any normal attack. Like, we're launching ballistic missiles at it, and nothing's working, and Reed figures out how to get the shield down, and they crash the ship. And Galactus jumps out of the thing, and I'll kill you all for this.
You do realize you're essentially describing the series finale of Avengers: Earth's Mightiest Heroes, right?
Haven't seen it.
You should.
Okay.
It's a good cartoon show. It's a very accurate representation of the Avengers. It's only a few seasons long, but it's pretty good from start to finish. So I recommend it.
Send it to me on DVD, because apparently I'm going to have a lot of time on my hands.
If I owned it, I might, but I don't. I have Netflix.
But that's what I would do. Have him be a dude. Have the Avengers have the Fantastic Four take down his ship. Have him get out of the ship and have him fight the Fantastic Four, and have them, beat him nearly to death before Reed has a crisis of conscience and realizes he's a force of nature. And in turn for sparing his life, Galactus spares the planet and takes off. He repairs his ship and he leaves. He says, from now until the end of time, Earth shall be spared from Galactus's hunger. And then the next movie, you can do the trial of Reed Richards, because Galactus goes on to consume the Skrull homeworld, as well as many others. And all those alien races are like, what the fuck? You had him. You had him on the ropes. Why would you let him go? And put Reed on to that.
Well, speaking of the Skrulls, let's talk about them for a minute, as far as, because they were part of the whole Secret Wars storyline, which, to harken back to Dr. Doom, he figured that out long before anyone else did. But, so, the Skrulls are a shape-shifting race. Apparently all alien races can shape-shift. Both the Skrull and the Kree are capable of it. But I'm curious about, again, the Skrull seem to, they bump up against the Fantastic Four more often than not. Galactus destroys their home. They're pissed. They put Reed on trial. They constantly seek a new home. They want to wipe out the Earth, the inhabitants of the Earth, and take it over as their new home. I mean, you can't help but feel for them in some respect, because, again, Galactus ate their planet.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's gotta suck.
But I mean, this does go back to, what should Fox be doing with the Fantastic Four? The Fantastic Four need to be dealing. They're not the Avengers. They need to be dealing with aliens. They need to be in space. This is where the Fantastic Four really did their best stuff.
Chief amongst the Skrulls, I'm curious about this. The Super Skrull, he absorbs the powers of the Fantastic Four, so he's got all of them in one.
Yeah, I mean, I know that he exists, and I know that he has all the powers of the Fantastic Four, but I don't know if it was through genetic manipulation, absorption, wishes. He kissed a frog.
So basically, Johnny Storm at the end of Rise of the Silver Surfer becomes the Super Skrull, is kind of how that plays out.
Yes. One of the more annoying things about that movie.
Everything about that movie is annoying. Just... I can find some enjoyment in the first one. I mean, Michael Chiklis as the Thing is pretty cool. Chris Evans overacting Johnny Storm is hilarious at times. Ian Groffett is great as Mr. Fantastic. Everything else kind of falls flat. But there are things I can find enjoyable about it. I got nothing for Silver Surfer. It's just, I got nothing. Start to finish, nothing.
But you were asking about the Skrulls. Yeah, I mean... what's to say about them? They're a great they're a great foe for the Fantastic Four. They had a lot of interactions with the Fantastic Four. They were responsible for one of the big crossovers. One of the things that I think caused an entire retcon of almost everything going on in comics at one point was, I think, the Secret Invasion, where everybody was a Skrull for a while.
No, it wasn't. It clearly, no, this guy would never do that. We want him to be a good guy, so it was a Skrull.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it was Marvel's version of Wizard did it.
It was a wizard.
It was a Skrull, clearly. Yeah. Please go back to liking so-and-so.
Yeah, there was a period there where I didn't read comic books, and that's the kind of shit that made me stop reading in the first place. But I mean, that's really all I have to say about the Skrulls. I thought they were. I think the movies are aching for their appearance. As I said, that would be my in the Radulich Fantastic Four trilogy. Galactus lands and is summarily defeated. In the second movie, Reed is captured and brought before a court of aliens, see, here's my problem, right? Like, you have their leader is kidnapped early on in the movie and brought across the galaxy. Now Sue, Johnny, and the Thing have to figure out, one, where the hell he is, and two, how they're going to get there and get him out of there. And I'm envisioning the second and third act, them trying to find him, and the big climactic thing is them trying to get him out of there. Because in the actual trial of Reed Richards, it ain't all that interesting. I'll tell you what. It's essentially, I think Odin gives testimony. And a couple of other folks give testimony, and that's really all there is. And eventually, I think he's found not guilty, and it pisses the shit out of the Skrulls.
It spawns their invasion of Earth.
Right. But that's all there is. In my version of it, they would actually, there's no trial to be had. I mean, he's on trial, but he ain't gonna make it to the end because the Fantastic Four are gonna bust his ass out of there. But my question would be, sticking somewhat close to the source material, who do you have taking Reed's place? And without falling on fucking Dr. Doom, because that's the easy answer.
Well, again, Doom would be the easiest answer. Man, it's hard more with Fox's limited, resources as far as that goes.
Right. Well, that's the thing. I said Black Bolt, and then I remember they don't have any access to the Inhumans, because Medusa was actually. Here's the problem: everyone that's been in the Fantastic Four, they don't have any access to.
Yeah,
they don't have access.
Spider-Man was a member when they were the Future Foundation after Johnny Storm died for a bit.
I'm just thinking back to like the era that this story actually happened. You had the members of the Fantastic Four were the Alicia character, but she became like She-Thing. There was the She-Hulk for a while. There was Medusa, who's an Inhuman. You've had Black Panther and Storm. I mean, it's kind of so I suppose they could maybe grab somebody from the X-Men.
If they need help, they can go to Xavier type thing.
Well, that's the thing. Like you want somebody who's smart enough. Like I was thinking maybe the Beast. Somebody who's smart in the science area. Sort of lead the team. I mean, maybe they can get a hot middle-aged actor to sort of take over the Kelsey Grammer role, and be the guy that leads them across space. Knowing Fox, knowing the intern from Fox currently listening to this podcast, they're going, "We have a great way to keep Wolverine in this."
Oh yeah, but you have to recast him at this point because it can't be Hugh Jackman.
Yeah.
But
I was thinking people that were in the Fantastic Four: Storm, Black Panther. They took over for Reed and Sue for a while. I can't think of anybody who's replaced Reed though, other than Black Panther.
No, that's a rough one to replace because again, you need someone who is extremely intelligent. I mean, Black Bolt would work. Again, he's a member of the Illuminati. Theoretically, Stephen Strange. But these are not people that Fox has access to, so they'd wind up going with Doom just because that's what they have.
Mm-hmm. Doom, or again, they got to pull somebody from the X-Men Magneto.
Yeah, they could do Magneto's not a genius though. I mean, much as I love Magneto.
Who's a good astrophysicist from the X-Men?
Oh, I got a hard time with that one. Again, Beast is your kind of quasi, prototypical scientific genius.
Maybe if they ever did anything with the Phoenix, just from her exposure to our
of
empire.
Course, that would. I wish they could do that properly, but they can't, and they won't.
Anyway, so yeah, for the sake of argument, we'll go with Beast, who kind of ticks all the right boxes. So you have Beast, who they end up going to, who tracks them across space, and and they go to where the trial's being held, and they bust them out of there, and they get him home. But for this outrage, the Skrulls, and in the third movie, you have the Skrulls invading. And then you could actually do like a good Fantastic Four X-Men crossover because there's enough Skrulls there for everybody to take on. It would be a lot of fun, I think. But I think
that seems like a pretty good way to do it.
But I think the Skrulls need a proper representation on screen. At the very least, the Super Skrulls. They don't want to do a full-on superhero.
He could be a rogue, a renegade Skrull that obtained DNA material from the Fantastic Four when they broke Reed out, and now is hell-bent on revenge.
Right. So, like I said, if they don't want to do a full-on invasion, the Skrulls send down the Super Skrull, and that's the one bad guy in the thing. But all right, what else you got on the list?
The last kind of major one, well, there's two. On the one hand, I actually wanted to briefly touch on Annihilus, who leads the Annihilation Wave, which actually killed Johnny Storm for, 5 or 6 episodes, because death doesn't matter in comics. Unless you're Uncle Ben, and even then...
You and that line. Jesus,
hang on.
Gimmick.
It's true. Look, he's the only guy in comics who doesn't come back. Well, Jonathan Kent, too. Even then, I think he kind of did at some point.
This is becoming your hustle, loyalty, and respect, sir. We got it. No one dies forever. Okay, it's not like a James Bond film.
Except for Uncle Ben. And even then, I guarantee you, Joe Quesada is planning on changing that in the near future.
I guarantee you, someone's coming up with a Spider Ben.
Now, Joe Quesada just wants to kick Spider-Man fans in the nuts one more time, and bringing back Uncle Ben would do it.
So Annihilus. I read a comic book recently called Hulk versus Thanos, which really should have been called Hulk versus Annihilus. Where Annihilus, this is during the period where Banner worked for S.H.I.E.L.D. Recently.
You'd think he'd learn.
Before the whole Doc Green episode. But apparently Annihilus had, I forget who, some character whose name, some like impish character, kidnapped Banner, and they needed him, and they put him in like in a trance where he's like in this virtual reality, and they're doing this because they're doing experiments on him, and they don't want him waking up and becoming the Hulk. Somehow or other, Thanos gets involved in this, and in this virtual reality, Thanos shows up. But this is really about Annihilus getting genetic material from the Hulk so that he can ingest it himself and become like Super Annihilus. And I'm guessing this leads to the Annihilation Wave. I don't know. It was only Hulk versus Thanos was only what should have been called Hulk versus Annihilus. It was only a 4-part series, and then it was over. Banner escapes. But that's all I really can tell you about Annihilus.
He leads he has the cosmic control rod, which allows him to control the Annihilation Wave, which is a
lot of bugs. We have the Annihilation Wave comes to Tampa every summer.
Something like that.
I have to listen, man. When it rains a lot, and it drives all of the all of the roaches and and roach type bugs inside the house. We have to deal with an Annihilation Wave going on here.
Yeah. Again, they live in the negative zone most of the time. They kill the Human Torch dies trying to stop them from getting out of the negative zone.
Wouldn't it have made more sense for this movie to have had Annihilus in it?
This movie, absolutely. He's in that alternate dimension, kind of living on that planet. They awaken him, they piss him off, and he now wants to lead his hordes through and conquer Earth.
Yeah, I was going to say, wouldn't that have, it would have made more sense if they had gone into the negative zone and, and they had discovered Annihilus and his kingdom. Somehow or other that generates their powers, but on the way back, Annihilus follows them through.
The cosmic control rod has plenty of powers that include energy manipulation. They could be blasted by that, and that would explain it. I mean, it's not rocket science here.
Or maybe it's sort of again, Mickey and the Beanstalk. It's the magic harp kind of a thing. Like they steal the control rod. They try to experiment on it, and it goes haywire and causes them all to have powers. And Annihilus comes. Now Annihilus is trying to come back through the portal because he wants his rod back.
Because otherwise he can't control his, millions of followers who now want to eat him.
Makes sense. See, Fox, we're waiting. Listen, the Radulich and Broadcasting and Consultancy Network is waiting for your phone call. We try. We can rescue this franchise. I already know how I would do it. because I mean, just bring Joan Grofeld back. Leave Michael B. Jordan as the Human Torch. Leave Kate Mara as Sue Storm. Bring Michael.
Come on, you can replace Kate Mara and do better.
No, I think a good director with Kate Mara saves that part, and you don't have to.
I just think he can do better. She's not actively detracting from that movie, but I feel like she's one of she falls into the replaceables category along with Channing Tatum, Taylor Kitsch, Lucas Black, and Eva Mendes.
But I don't want to do a full reboot. Is the problem?
You don't need to. You're already recasting people.
No, I want to bring back. I want to do an amalgamation of the old Fantastic Four with the new Fantastic Four. So it's kind of like keep 2 and 2.
Okay. I see a little bit of what you're after here.
So I said you keep Kate Mara, keep Michael P. Jordan, bring Michael Chiklis and Joan Gruffudd back. You've got your Fantastic Four right there that actually makes sense. And then you do, and then you can do my trilogy, and then at the end of my trilogy, you can start the next trilogy with the Nihilus. And when are we going to talk about the Mole Man?
He was up next because he's hilarious.
I got a way to do the Mole Man too now, by the way.
Okay, go ahead. How do you do the Mole Man?
Okay, here's how you do the Mole Man. First of all, it's Peter Dinklage. Okay, you've got to get Peter Dinklage.
Okay.
But Peter Dinklage, right, is a guy working in AI and robotics, and he loses, and like every other guy, working with government contract. Lily, go to bed. Go. No, yes. We're on a podcast right now. I see you sleeping. Go to bed.
I'm up. See?
I catch you sleeping. I'm going to say go to bed.
All evidence to the contrary. She is not asleep yet.
I caught your eyes shutting.
Oh, no, blinking.
You stay out of this. This is not your child. It's just your podcast.
But I can make snarky comments. It's my podcast.
Anyway, so he has his government contract, right? To build AI weapons for the government, and like everything else, he builds something. It kind of goes haywire. They take the contract from him. He wants revenge, and what he's building are is sort of this like remote. He has like this band that he wears around his head that allows him to remote with his mind control these digging robots. So the mole creatures are robots. That's how you do it. And he's controlling them with his mind like he would in the comic book normally, but we're doing it through computers now and making it a little bit more realistic. And that guy, see, Mole Man is the guy you used to do a revenge. So he's taking
Well, sure, they take his contracts away because Reed Richards looks over his research and goes, yeah, this is a little bit crazy.
Right. Or like I said, they're doing a demonstration. Demonstration doesn't go the way it should. Someone gets hurt, whatever. They're like, oh, you're a crazy person. This should have never happened.
You're a loose cannon. You're out of control. You're not supervised properly.
Right. So then he starts like attacking government installations. He's terrorist number one now, domestic terrorist number one. Fantastic Four have to stop him. That's how you do the Mole Man in 2015.
I'm okay with that. I think that's a pretty good way to go about it.
But the Mole Man, first of all, the Mole Man I'm most familiar with though is the Mole Man from the Superhero Squad.
Everyone has a Mole Man.
The Mole Man.
Even the Simpsons have a Mole Man.
Yes, they do. The Mole Man in the Superhero Squad farts a lot.
I can't help but think about when they mention the Mole Man, the closing bit of The Incredibles when the Underminer pops up.
Oh, right.
And lets everyone know that while he may be below them, nothing is beneath him.
That's a great line.
It is. It's a great line. I'm not entirely. Now I'm just curious. You mentioned that one of the reasons you don't think these movies turn out very well is that Fox just doesn't seem to understand what they have.
Right.
And I'm curious, from your perspective, and I mean, personally speaking, you've hit the nail on the head when you mentioned that the Fantastic Four is kind of a throwback, fun at its core sci-fi property. Those are the ingredients you need to make it successful. It should probably be brightly colored, be set a fair amount not on the planet Earth, and be a good science fiction movie. And That's not what they've even remotely attempted to do.
No, it's the comedy Avengers. Well, it's either the comedy Avengers or it's a bad remake of Chronicle.
Which was not all that good to begin with. So, okay, we know what I'm curious now, why is it that for some reason Fox can't seem to get this right? What is it that, from your perspective as an outsider and would-be consultant, if the head of Fox came to you and said, okay, what's the problem here, Mr. Consultant? We're paying you. What do we need to fix? Where would you say, what do you think the biggest problem they have there is?
Well, I would tell them, look, I understand you want to make this appeal to kids. Tell you what, why don't you just work on making a good movie and we'll make sure that it stays PG. Okay? Those would be, the deal breakers, okay? It has to be PG. That way any kid can see it. But you don't have to write at a level. Just write a good story. And a lot of this we've already covered on this show. I'd be repeating myself if I went all the way back through it again. But that's it. I think the first time around, Fox was like, the problem, I think, to sum it up, is the pendulum has swung too far one way and then too far the other way. Like, they can't seem to find the middle. With the 2005-2007, they went super silly and they made it too stupid. So, and they didn't make it a sci-fi property. They made it, Avengers Light. So that's too far to one side. And then it was like, okay, it's like they recognized that mistake and they're like, okay, well, we got to make this thing dark and gritty. And I tell you, I didn't get a chance to say this the other night, but I'll say it now. It was like they finished up with the X-Men movies, and then they started with the prequels, essentially, with the young cast. And they were like, look, that's the formula that made the X-Men successful, right? X-Men First Class and then Days of Future Past. What we need is a sexy young cast, and we need to make this thing dark and depressing and gritty. And okay, it worked for Days of Future Past, okay, because that's the kind of story that it is. If they do it again with Apocalypse, I'm going to be pissed. They can't keep making like these super depressing, drab stories with the X-Men. But up till now,
again, the Age of Apocalypse isn't a drab, depressing story. It's intense and there's some darkness there to be sure, but it's not nearly as fatalistic as Days of Future Past is.
I hope to God that the people so far, in Bryan Singer I trust, just like in Marvel I trust. So it hasn't led me astray yet. So I'm gonna give him his due and hope that it works out. But the problem is, it's like Fox is looking at the X-Men formula and applying it to something that it doesn't readily work. You can't take the same thing that pulled your X-Men franchise out of the doldrums, X3, I'm looking in your direction, and apply it like across the board, like it's some sort of miracle cure. The X-Men are not the Fantastic Four. It's not even close. First of all, the X-Men aren't nearly as depressing as the Fantastic Four on their worst day. So, it's not the same thing. The X-Men has always been sort of a socio-political kind of a thing, and they're closer to the Avengers than they are the Fantastic Four. The Fantastic Four, and you said it before, they're a sci-fi property. They're not action heroes as such. If you're gonna lay off the special effects and you want to have people doing stuff, Reed has to be doing science stuff a lot of the times. That's what he did in the comic books. He was always in the lab. That's half of what got the Fantastic Four in trouble in the first place. Was he was always discovering like alternate dimensions, or he was taking them into space and stuff like that. And that's where they meet half their enemies. Again, not the Avengers.
Yeah, it really isn't, and you can't apply the same formula and expect success because you're trying to shoehorn in something that doesn't work.
Right.
All right. I think that's going to go ahead and wrap this up. Mark, any final thoughts on kind of the villains of the Fantastic Four? What it takes to, what it takes to create a good villain that can oppose them, that maybe we haven't touched on yet already?
No, we pretty much said it. When you said you were going to do this, I couldn't remember a lot of. Let me go back a step. When we were talking about on the Long Road to Ruin, the 2005 Fantastic Four, I said, what that movie really needed was a montage of the Fantastic Four defeating Earthbound villain, and then I couldn't come up with any other than the Mole Man. Like the Mole Man's no big deal. But when I started thinking about like like the big list of baddies, I kept coming up with like Thor villains. You know, the Wrecking Crew were mostly a Thor thing.
And they could have done Namor.
Yeah, they could have done Namor. But that certainly points us in the direction of fantastic and otherworldly, even though it's Atlantis. But I was thinking of like MODOK, and MODOK was more of an Avengers Hulk thing. The leader was the Hulk. The Enchantress is Thor. Loki is Thor. The Wizard, I think, is a Fantastic Four villain. He showed up in other places. Possibly Iron Man. Lily, go to bed. No, you're done. Go. No, you're not. You were asleep. Nope. America, wait for you to go to bed. No, you're not. Go to bed. Good night.
I remember being a kid and not wanting to sleep. Now I'm an adult who only wants to
You're in
sleep.
a lot of trouble. See that doll right there? That doll belongs to me. If you don't get off that couch right now, go to bed. Take your doll, go to bed. Have a good night. Let's go. Come on. Step it up.
All right. Well, Mark becomes a parent for a brief period of time.
Love you.
I'll go ahead and wrap this up. Again, that's everything we've got to talk about here. Again, to the low-level intern at Fox who trawls the waters of the internet looking for ideas, we've provided you with several.
Hang on. So who else? So what are the street level Star Trek? Whatever street level Fantastic Four villains were there?
Oh, let's see. Yeah. Now there's the awesome android, who's a robot.
All right.
There's an evil counterpart to Reed Richards.
List of Fantastic
Diablo.
Four villains.
There's Diablo, the evil alchemist. And Dr. Octopus is a bit of a stretch. It's more of a Spider-Man villain.
Spider-Man. All right. According to Wikipedia, Abraxas, a cosmic entity. No, that's not going to work. Annihilus, we already talked about him. Aaron is a rogue watcher. Nope. Okay, so the awesome android and the mad thinker. Okay, we already talked about them. The Beyonder, no. Brute, he said, is an evil counterpart to Reed Richards. Devos, the Devastator, extraterrestrial. Nope. Diablo, an evil alchemist. There we go. See, could have taken him down. Dragon Man, a robot in the form of a dragon created by Diablo. Ego, the living planet. Yes. No, not what we're looking for here.
But living planet, yes.
The Frightful Four, the team up to the Fantastic Four led by the Human Torch's enemy, the Wizard. There's a movie that's just waiting to be made. See, they need to do one with the Wizard and the Frightful Four. That'd be awesome.
Well, it would be something.
Again, see, like I'm up to K, and 90% of the villains I'm finding are all space villains. Claw.
Yeah, they do. Again, most of what they deal with is galactic and in stature. They don't deal with a lot of stuff just on the planet.
Lucia von Bardis, a woman cyborg from Latveria. The Mad Thinker. Okay, we're going to talk about him. They listed Magneto, oddly enough. Malice, an evil psionic entity that resided in the mind of Invisible Woman. Yeesh. Maximus is an Inhuman. Mephisto.
He's just the devil.
Mole Man! Yes. Molecule Man. Nicholas Scratch. Oculus. Again, can't use him. Onslaught, can't use him. Psycho Man.
It's some slim pickings if you want to remain earthbound.
Yeah, well, like I said, for a montage where you just want to see the Fantastic Four knocking out supervillains, you only need about 4 or 5, and that's about as many
as we've got here. Yeah.
Oh my God, I want to see a movie with the Red Ghost, a ghost-like figure with minions of super apes.
Who doesn't love minions of super apes?
I want to see a movie with minions of super apes.
Everyone needs evil minions. If mine could be super apes, they'd be fine. I'd be happy with it.
So, there you go. So I think my point has been made here about get these fucking people off into space.
Yeah, that's where they excel. And that's where the storytelling will excel as well, basically. And you just need a director who knows how to make a science fiction movie that doesn't suck. So basically I'm saying throw the book at J.J. Abrams.
I swear to God, you just beat me to the punch. But yeah, that's a call in J.J.
He's the only, the only category or the only limiter here is he gets 5 lens flares for the entire movie. That's it.
All right, there you go. So, Marvel. I can save your Fantastic Four. Don't ask me to direct it or anything like that. I don't understand that stuff. I mean, I can direct performances, but I've never directed anything besides a two-man, one-act play. So, I'm not offering to direct, not even offering to write it. I'm offering to consult.
We can tell you what you're doing wrong and how to fix it. That's
right. We've given you several good stories here. I can give you 6 Fantastic Four movies right now. I've already given you 3.
The first hit is free. Then you got to actually call us and talk to us about it.
That's right. I'll tell you what my ideas are for The Wizard and the Frightful Four.
Boy, those would be awful movies.
Shut up!
It won't stop them from being made. They made this one, and this one was quite possibly the worst thing I've ever paid to see in a movie theater.
I want to know when we're going to see Fin Fang Foom.
Boy, that would be nice. Who doesn't love an interdimensional dragon?
I wanted it to be in the Hulk movie.
There's no Hulk movie, and there never will be.
I read somewhere that Phase 4, there's going to be a Power Pack movie and a Planet Hulk movie.
Well, you can hope.
Power Pack would be interesting. Well, that's like digging the bottom of the barrel, though, isn't it?
They're making a Deadpool movie. They're already there.
Oh, for goodness sakes. End this podcast.
I'm just saying, Deadpool is not a character that should have his own movie. It's just a bad idea. It just is. All right.
I'm not entertaining this discussion again.
Yeah, we've already talked about it, and we'll talk about it after the movie fails miserably. So, I can wait.
Shut up.
Just saying, I can wait. Come February, I will be proven right once again. All right. Anything you got to plug, Mark, apart from your inevitable fanboyism over Straight Outta Compton this Wednesday?
LeBron James still hopeful for Space Jam 2. No. Yes, I will be. I will be on. I finished up reading all my comic books today, so I'm prepared now. I'm going to be on the most popular podcast on this network. Apparently, Jesse Starcher's Source Material.
It's the best promoted, at the very least.
He's the hardest working man on the Radulich and Broadcasting Network. I'll give him that.
You should triple his money.
I'm gonna quadruple his money.
All right, you're a generous man.
I am. I initially picked a picture of myself and my wife wearing our Becky Lynch and Charlotte shirts that we wore to NXT tapings yesterday as my my desktop screen, and then I decided to go with Howard the Duck instead.
I'm not sure that was a wise decision because Howard the Duck is kind of awful.
Howard the Duck is kind of awesome.
More awful than awesome.
Speaking of Howard the Duck, I will be on Jesse Stark's Source Material talking about the latest in Secret Wars, A-Force, Planet Hulk, Future Imperfect, Spider-Man Renew Your Vows, and Howard the Duck.
I'm glad you found a way to connect those, but I'm not at all happy about Howard the Duck. Just its existence.
The Duck is amazing.
I couldn't possibly disagree with you. All right.
Marvel, if you're listening, Phase 4 needs Howard the Duck.
They already introduced him, and apparently they're paying Seth Green to voice him, so they're probably going to.
Yay, new Howard the Duck movie.
Yeah, but they'll have to get Leah Thompson back for the new one, and then she's going to have to get into bed with the duck again, and the whole thing just gets too...
No, just based on the most recent series that I've been reading about. There's no Leah Thompson in that one. Howard the Duck is a detective, and he shares office space with the She-Hulk, who's a lawyer, and it's an intergalactic chase, and it's great. It's just an awesome story.
I'll take your word for it, but I won't be participating in that. All right. On that note, ladies and gentlemen, I'm Robert Winfree, for Mark Radulich, reminding everyone out there that if the best you can do for a villain is a whiny, neck-bearded, emo computer geek, like they tried to make Dr. Doom, you've failed miserably on a fundamental level. Start over. Do better next time. And as always, be well, be safe, and behave.
So say good night to the bad guy.